The place to be for news, notes, interviews, and current events for all issues military and veteran related. If you or someone you know has ever worn the uniform of the U.S. Coast Guard, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, or National Guard or Reserves, you've come to the right place. American Warrior Radio, right here on the Talk to Me station, AM 1300 WMEL, and online worldwide at 1300WMEL.com, sponsored by AVET Project. Folks, this program is all about supporting our troops and their families, both past and present. So please get comfortable, grab a cup of coffee, and a pencil and paper to jot down a note or two, because we're always efforting to bring you important information that you can use and share with others. With that said, let's roll down the runway and get this show off the ground. As you all know, my name is Garen Cohn. I'm an Air Force veteran, a retired legal advocate for veterans, and founder of AVET Project. My usual co-host, Glenn McGuffey, is off this week, but I've got a very qualified stand-in for him. My guest co-host is none other than Scott Wilson, retired Army. You've heard him before. Say hello, Scott.
How's everybody doing out there in American Warrior Radio land?
It's a beautiful Saturday, and we want to get things kicked off right away because we've got a lot of ground to cover. So let's start off with a bosun's call. All right, we have on the line with us, and we got a special edition of the Bosun's Call. They're all special because I know how much everybody out there in American Warrior Radio land enjoys hearing what the latest news is from our U.S. Coast Guard. But we got a special one today because we have a ship-to-shore call-in from Captain James Passarelli, who is the commander of the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Confidence, based right out of Port Canaveral here. Commander, can you hear us?
Hey, greetings from Sieg. Good to be talking to you, Garen. Scott, how you guys doing?
We're doing awesome,
Great.
sir.
How you doing, sir?
Thank you so much for spending a few minutes with us. And the neat thing is, we've never had this before. We've talked to generals and all kinds of different folks abroad in Afghanistan and other theaters. We've never had a captain of a ship call in for a bosun's call, so this is especially nice, and we appreciate your time. You're underway. Where are you at, generally speaking? Because I know you have to keep a lot of this stuff filtered.
Yeah, we're currently operating generally in the Caribbean area, so we're underway on a counter-drug deployment mission right now, supporting something called Operation Martillo, Martillo being the Spanish word for hammer. And it's a 15-nation joint interagency and international collaborative effort against the transnational criminal organizations, or basically the drug trafficking organizations.
This sounds potentially dangerous, sir, and for those folks that are just tuning in and having not heard a bosun's call before, the Coast Guard isn't just about keeping our shores and borders safe. You guys are out there doing different activities. Explain a little bit, because that operation sounds pretty far-reaching.
That's true, Garen. Most people, when they think of the Coast Guard, they think of near to the U.S. shores. You watch the Coast Guard Alaska you see on TV. Our ship, Confidence, primarily operates close to somebody else's coast. We tend to take on the threat as far from the U.S. shores as we can. So if we're dealing with migrants that are coming to the U.S. illegally, we try and patrol off the source country's coastline. If we're trying to combat transnational drug trafficking organizations, we want to go to the source. It's much easier to defend that bit of water than it is to defend the 95,000 miles of U.S. coastline around the country.
And that makes great sense to me. And folks, if you just tuned in, again, this is a ship-to-shore satellite phone connection we've got with Captain Passarelli, so bear with us if you hear a little bit of squawking. I like that point, though, because the further away you get from the shore, the less immediate threat there is to our shores. So you intervene out there on the waters.
That's correct. And so what we're doing here is not just to combat the threats and provide some regional security to our Central American and South American brothers, but it's also a direct impact on the national security and the sovereignty of the United States. If we have a destabilized, say, Honduras or Nicaragua or such nation, that trickles over into Mexico, and pretty soon that's trickling over the borders into the U.S., as we've seen in the past years.
So it's obviously, I'd rather you be out there doing that than so close to our shores here. But Scott, you had a question about how many nations are involved in this operation.
Yes, sir. how many nations are you actually protecting? Can you actually speak of what nations they are?
Well, it's a 15-nation collaborative effort, so it's not just the U.S. and our South and Central American partners. We also have other nations that have interest in the region. For example, the British, the Dutch, the French, they all have territories in this region as well, and they are also very interested in maintaining regional stability. So altogether, it's 15-nation partnership. Every three-letter law enforcement agency in the U.S. is involved in this operation, from the FBI to the DEA to CIS. So it's a very much a vast team effort.
And you mentioned, so say for instance, the British Virgin Islands, that would be one concern for the Brits, right?
Correct.
Okay. So what kind of things?
We're talking about these organizations that not only move, narcotics, the cocaine, the marijuana that everybody thinks about, but they're also moving things like precursor chemicals, things that are used for very bad things, bulk cash, weapons, human smuggling. All these things contribute to destabilizing the local governments down here, which could be a big problem for us in the future.
Now, and you mentioned there's 15 nations and all these other alphabet soup from the United States. Is there any particular outfit that takes the lead on this, or do you all work at working together? How's that come together?
In situations such as this, when you form a joint coalition like this, usually it's a multilateral effort with lots of organizations taking part, from the Department of Defense to the Department of Justice, Department of Homeland Security. So it's a pretty broad effort to get all this coordination going together, and even Department of State to get our international partners to play along. So it's really a big effort.
Okay, now, Captain Passarelli, everybody thinks Coast Guard. We're talking about boarding ships, we're talking about safety, we're talking about other things. Now, you're talking about the alphabet soup, you're talking about Department of Defense, which actually the Coast Guard is, that most people, kind of forget. Do you have the armament on the ship to be able to take care of something in case something happens, or are you a passive ship?
Well, this is what, again, where it gets really confusing. The Coast Guard operates under the Department of Homeland Security, and the reason we do that is because there's a U.S. law that forbids the Department of Defense from enforcing laws on the U.S. citizens. That's something that dates back to the Civil War, called Posse Comitatus. And that means that we don't want to become a police state. So that generally speaking, Department of Defense does not enforce U.S. laws on U.S. citizens. Now, the Department of Defense has a huge role in the things that we're doing down here, because they have the capabilities and the assets to do detection and monitoring. So they can find the bad guys and locate them, and when they do, then the Coast Guard or another agency that's able to enforce laws takes action. For example, because we're under the Department of Homeland Security, we can enforce U.S. laws, but during wartime, we also support Department of Defense missions. So we are equally capable here aboard this ship to do both, although primarily we will be more in the law enforcement mode than anything else. Our brothers and sisters in the Coast Guard are serving in Iraq and Afghanistan, all over the world, with our Department of Defense brothers.
Right, but that's kind of your way of saying, yes, you do have guns on your ship. And I imagine your crew gets to go out there and practice and stay qualified on the weaponry?
Absolutely. That's one of the best morale boosters we have, is good gunnery exercise.
Blow some stuff up. We like hearing that. And the cutter, tell us a little bit about that and your crew, because for folks that don't know, this is a grand old ship. Give us a little background on it.
Your Confidence, she's actually designed in the 50s and built in 1966. And she was designed, as most ships are, to operate for about 20 or 30 years, and she's going on to 50. And a lot of that has to do with the budget climate in Washington and the challenges the Coast Guard has had with shipbuilding and getting funding for that. But we're doing everything we can to keep her moving along here in her close to retirement age. And the crew spends an incredible amount of blood, sweat, and tears to keep her going. 50-year-old hunk of steel that sits in a saltwater environment. You can imagine the amount of work it takes to keep her going, and find the parts and such to keep her running when none of those things are really manufactured anymore.
Right, but one good point is your crew is so up to date, and the technologies have been improved as the ship has aged, and you've got a new fast boat rigged to your ship as well, right?
this ship was not built for speed. She was built for a much different mission back in the 60s to enforce fisheries laws and protect the fish stocks. And now we're running her in the Caribbean and chasing, 35 or 40 knot speedboats that are carrying drugs and bad guys. So my reach on board is my helicopter and my small boats. That's what gives me my speed and my reach to be able to intercept these speedboats that are built with the intent of going very, very fast.
Okay, you mentioned a helicopter. You have one of the small Dolphins, or what kind of helicopter do you launch from your ship?
Yeah, we have. It's funny. This class of cutter, the Reliance class Coast Guard cutter, it's the smallest flight deck, pretty much in the NATO fleet. So it's a real challenge for the aviators to land on board. And we have one type of helicopter in the Coast Guard inventory that we can fly with, and that's an MH-65 Dolphin. So it's a multi-mission helicopter equipped for everything from search and rescue to other missions.
Now, I've got a note handed to me by the producer. She wants to know why ships are referred to in the female pronoun, the she. I mean, you're a learned man. You've been in the Coast Guard your whole career. Tell us a little bit about why that came about. Do you know?
It's naval tradition, and hopefully my wife's not listening, but, because ships, like women, are very temperamental.
Glad you said that, sir. Not me. Now, talking about the she and maybe the temperamental, can you speak of the makeup of your crew, and do you have any of those temperamentals on your ship?
Oh, you did not say that. Hey, you've got some female sailors with you.
And that's why I said that, because they do know me, and they will retaliate against me later.
We do have somewhat of a mixed crew because the ship was built and designed and built so long ago. I don't have berthing facilities for a truly integrated crew. So the only women I have on board are a couple of my junior officers, and I've got some extra folks on board. So right now I'm actually carrying 4 women on board, all junior officers. Our other ships that are built to more modern standards are fully integrated, and they have better berthing arrangements and the facilities to host almost any mix of male and female on board.
And we're so proud of their service too. We've met several of them. You've got an incredible crew, sir. And I wanted to mention, you talked about the age of the ship. It's older than most of your crew, probably nearly all your crew. Okay, but it doesn't preclude you from getting high marks on all of your reviews. And I understand now is your 12th consecutive Coast Guard Battle E that's been awarded to the Confidence. Tell us a little bit about that.
That is every 2 years, so biannually, we are required to go through an evaluation of our ability to survive damage, an assessment of our training teams, our evaluation of our combat readiness. It's something that Navy ships and Coast Guard ships do. So when we did that this past year, and we do it again every 2 years, the crew did exceptionally well. We turn over about a third of the crew every summer, so even with a third of the crew being brand new and having never been on this ship before, on a scale of 1 to 100, we average better than 96% on all of our drills and evaluations, and we earn that Battle E. And it's not a given. It's not easy. There are some ships that just can't get there, and they miss in one category. And this was our 13th consecutive. So going on the past 26 years, the ship has been doing it right.
That speaks obviously to your command and leadership and your leadership team. And I'd kind of like to be able to move forward with that and talk about your command philosophy, if you don't mind, in the last few minutes that we have left.
Sure.
Your mission obviously is, your primary goal is to defend the nation, but you obviously have some great core values. Would you go along and speak about those, please?
Sure, and just for, I guess, a little bit of background, a command philosophy is something that we require our commanding officers of ships to put together, and it's a written statement that is posted conspicuously throughout the ship and given to every crew member when they come aboard, and it's a way to communicate where the commanding officer is coming from and how they intend to conduct operations and lead the ship. So it's something that every commanding officer is required to do, and it's something that we ask folks to put a lot of thought into to make sure that not only does it make sense, but also does it sound like, when I wrote mine, for example, does it sound like me? And I had a few people make sure that it sounded like me speaking in terms of what I wrote. But it's a way to communicate what my intent is, and mine is it's not poetry by any means, but I break it down in just a few categories to talk about, our mission, our core values, the importance of safety, the importance of excellence in our execution, the importance of professionalism. And a lot of this is centered around, the Coast Guard has a motto of our three core values of honor, respect, and devotion to duty, service-wide. And I try to weave that into my command philosophy to make sure that we are hitting those finer points as we're conducting our day-to-day exercises and performing the mission. Because, like you said, we exist to keep bad things and bad people from reaching the U.S. And if we're doing our job right, we're providing an incredibly valuable service for our country.
And I want to mention for all the listeners out there that want to read his command philosophy, Captain Passarelli's philosophy, you can do so by going to, just Google it, U.S. Coast Guard Cutter Confidence. It'll bring the page right up, and you'll see the command philosophy. It's you say it's not poetry. I don't know. These are really powerful words that you put to paper here, and I know that you follow them. And one I have to mention is under core values, without the crew, this ship is useless. I mean, that's the truth, right?
Absolutely, and we ask an incredible amount of and demand an incredible amount from this crew. They're gone better than half a year, so that's half a year away from the family. We average 185 days away from home every year. They're not living in the best conditions. Again, this ship was designed and built in the 60s, so it was not built for creature comforts in any means. And even though we're a 210-foot ship, in the sea states that we're in, it's quite often not a very comfortable ride, especially in wintertime. We've been getting tossed around pretty good on this deployment. So we ask an incredible amount from them. We put them under demanding conditions, and they come through every time. It's amazing what they can do.
Yeah. What is the size of your crew right now? Are you able to tell us that?
Yeah. Normally we're at capacity around 75 or 77 folks, and I'm currently carrying right around 80 now because of a helicopter detachment on board.
Outstanding. And just a small portion of coasties actually get out to sea, as I understand, right?
The history of the Coast Guard dates back to 1790 and the Revenue Cutter Service. So our inception was around sailing ships, and it's kind of a striking figure today to understand that really only about 15% of the billets in the Coast Guard today are actually seagoing because of the demands that have built up ashore and our requirements to do things at the port level and our shore-based search and rescue. So really at any given time, about 15% of the Coast Guard is serving on a seagoing billet, and it's something that fewer and fewer people really understand. And these guys and gals that serve on this ship, though it's demanding and sometimes it's not the most fun at the end, these are the things that they will tell their grandkids about. These are where sea stories come from, is being on ships like this.
And that's kind of the way that you end your poetry, is you don't seem to be able to think it is. And you say here that I'm here because I love to go to sea and work alongside sailors like you and face unique challenges of the operational Coast Guard. Semper Paratus. But that's Latin. What does Latin translate to for Semper Paratus, sir?
Right, that is the Coast Guard's motto of always ready. The same as the Marine Corps Semper Fidelis, always faithful. So Semper Paratus has been our slogan for more than 100 years.
Well, again, I'm so happy you've been able to share a few minutes with us and our audience today. I know you've got an important job to get back to. All I can tell you is just keep safe out there, bring everybody home safely, and accomplish your mission. We've been talking with Captain James Passarelli, the commanding officer of the U.S. Coast Guard Cutter Confidence. And, sir, any final words?
I'm glad to be a part. Thank you guys for having me again. I'm glad the satellite connection held, and we were able to get through this. And anytime you guys need me, I'm here. Remember, the crew is what makes this ship go. It's not me. So the boys and girls on this ship are the ones that get it done. I get to sit here and take credit.
And please pass on our well wishes to the crew and say hello for us. I know we've done a lot of things with them, and we really appreciate everything that they do. And we're always thinking and praying for them and making sure everything goes well on your great missions that you do for everybody back here sitting in the lounge chair.
Have a
I
great.
certainly will, and thanks to AVET for the constant support of not only of us, but of our families while we're away.
Outstanding.
We're glad
Thank
to do
you.
it.
Thank you, sir. Have a great day.
All right, guys, take care and good luck.
Folks, again, that's Captain James Passarelli, the commanding officer, U.S. Coast Guard Cutter Confidence. We'll come back after a short break, so don't go anywhere on American Warrior Radio, heard right here on AM 1300 WMEL. We'll be right back.